I lost an imaginary bet. My husband and I never wanted kids. We were happy with our life, just the two of us. Our careers, our freedom, but for 5 straight years, our moms wouldn't shut up about it. "You're ignoring God's plan for you," my mom would say during every phone call. My mother-in-law was even worse. She'd send us articles about fertility declining with age, baby clothes in the mail, and guilt trips disguised as prayers. The only blessing? They absolutely despised each other. If those two had ever teamed up, we would have been completely doomed. Then I hit 30, and life threw us a curveball. I got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but after some long conversations, we decided to keep the baby. We were actually getting excited about it. You'd think our moms would be over the moon, right? No. Suddenly, it was like we didn't exist. My mom barely responded to texts. My mother-in-law stopped calling. When I went into labor and we let everyone know, my mom never even showed up at the hospital. My mother-in-law casually wandered in that evening like she was picking up groceries. No rush at all. Meanwhile, my sister dropped everything. She raced to the hospital first thing in the morning and stayed with me through the entire labor. She held my hand, brought me ice chips, and didn't leave my side once. After the baby was born, we walked down to the nursery together. She wanted to see her new nephew one more time before heading home. The nursery window was crowded with families cooing over their babies. All the newborns were doing their thing. Some were crying. Some had wiggled out of their swaddles and were waving their tiny fists around. Others were just staring into space with those classic blank newborn expressions. But my baby, he was being shy. Both of his little hands were covering his face. One hand over his left eye, the other over his mouth. All you could see was his tiny nose and one closed right eye peeking through. My sister looked at him and immediately started laughing. She said loud enough for people nearby to hear. "He must already know he looks like his ugly daddy because he's self-conscious." She leaned even closer to the glass. "Don't worry, little guy. They've made incredible progress in cosmetic surgery. You'll be just fine." For context, my husband and my sister have this running joke. Every time they see each other, it's hi ugly and bye ugly. They've been doing it for years. The funny part? Neither of them is ugly at all. They're both legitimately good-looking people, which makes the joke even more ridiculous. Right as we were laughing, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law came strolling down the hallway. They were deep in conversation with each other, completely ignoring everyone around them. Then they stopped right in the doorway, just stood there talking, blocking the entire entrance to the nursery viewing area. People were trying to get in and out, but they didn't move. They didn't even seem to notice. One man politely said, "Excuse me." "Nothing." He said it again, a little louder. Still nothing. Finally, he just squeezed past them, clearly annoyed. As he walked away, my sister-in-law spun around and shouted after him, Seriously? So rude." My sister and I made eye contact. We didn't say anything, but we both knew something absolutely unhinged was about to happen. You could feel it in the air. Eventually, they made their way over to the viewing window. Still didn't ask me how I was feeling. Didn't say congratulations. Didn't acknowledge the fact that I'd just given birth to their grandson. My sister-in-law just looked at the rows of babies and said flatly, "So, which one is yours?" Even though there were literal name cards on each crib, I pointed to my baby. He still had his hands over his face, hiding like a little hermit. I expected them to complain that they couldn't see him properly. Instead, my sister-in-law turned to my mother-in-law and said, "Clear as day, you were right. He doesn't look anything like your son." My mother-in-law nodded slowly like she'd just won an argument. I knew he wouldn't. A nurse walked into the nursery to check on the babies. She gently moved my son's hands away from his face to examine him. Through the glass, for the first time, everyone could see his full features clearly under the bright nursery lights. My mother-in-law gasped. My sister-in-law's smug expression vanished instantly. My sister squeezed my hand so hard it hurt, because looking back at us through the glass was a face that was undeniably, unmistakably identical to someone, just not who anyone expected. My father-in-law. The baby looked exactly like photos I'd seen of Theodore at 6 months old. Same broad forehead, same wide-set eyes, same distinctive ears that stuck out slightly at the top. Even the way his mouth curved when the nurse adjusted his blanket matched Theodore's baby pictures perfectly. My sister-in-law made this choking sound. My mother-in-law went completely white and gripped the railing in front of the viewing window so hard her knuckles turned the color of chalk. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish drowning in air. My sister was the first one to speak. Her voice came out perfectly casual, like she was commenting on the weather. "Huh, strong genes, I guess." My mother-in-law didn't respond. She just stared through the glass at her grandson, who had the exact same face as her husband did 70 years ago. The nurse finished her check and carefully positioned the baby back in his bassinet, this time with his hands at his sides so his whole face remained visible. My sister-in-law suddenly turned to me. "When's Garrett getting here?" Garrett, my husband, her brother, the man whose son apparently looked nothing like him and everything like his grandfather. "He's parking," I said. "Should be up any minute." The words had barely left my mouth when I heard his voice coming down the hallway. He was on the phone with someone, laughing about something. My mother-in-law's head whipped around so fast I heard her neck crack. Garrett rounded the corner, still on his phone, still smiling. He was wearing the same shirt he'd had on when I went into labor 14 hours ago, now wrinkled and stained with coffee. When he saw us all standing at the window, his face lit up. "Gotta go!" he said into the phone. My son's right here. He walked up beside me, put his arm around my shoulders, and looked through the glass. For a moment, he didn't say anything, just stood there, taking in his firstborn child for the first time since the nurses had cleaned him up and moved him to the nursery. Then he laughed. This big, genuine laugh that made other families at the window turn and smile. He looks just like my dad, Garrett said. He squeezed my shoulder. Hope you're ready for all the baby pictures, Deb. Mom's going to pull out every photo album she owns. I glanced at my mother-in-law. She was still gripping that railing, still pale, her mouth slightly open. My sister-in-law had her phone out now, but her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't seem to unlock it. Yeah, I said carefully. My sister snorted. Pretty clear? Kid's a clone. Genetics are wild. Garrett kissed the top of my head. I'm gonna grab us some food from the cafeteria. You want anything? Your sister? Before anyone could answer, my mother-in-law spoke for the first time since the nurse had revealed the baby's face. Her voice came out strangled and wrong. We need to talk. Garrett looked at her, eyebrows raised. Okay? About what? Not here. She glanced at the other families around us, then at my sister, then finally at me. Somewhere private. My sister-in-law grabbed her mother's arm. Mom, not now. Now, my mother-in-law insisted. She finally released her death grip on the railing. Right now. Garrett looked at me, confused. I shrugged, just as lost. My sister leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching the whole thing with the expression of someone settling in for a good show. There's a family waiting room down the hall, I offered. Room 3B. We passed it on the way here. My mother-in-law didn't wait for anyone else. She just turned and walked toward the room, her heels clicking against the linoleum floor with sharp, angry sounds. My sister-in-law hesitated, looked at Garrett, then hurried after her mother. Garrett watched them go, completely bewildered. What the hell was that about? No idea. I lied. But I did have an idea. A terrible, impossible idea that had started forming the second I saw my mother-in-law's face, when the nurse moved our son's hands away. The way she'd gasped, the way she'd gone pale, the way she'd said she knew he wouldn't look like Garrett. My sister pushed off from the wall. Want me to go eavesdrop? No, Garrett and I said at the same time. You're no fun. But she stayed put, looking between us and the hallway where my mother-in-law and sister-in-law had disappeared. Garrett ran his hand through his hair, making it stick up in every direction. I should probably go see what's wrong. Maybe she's upset about something else and it just hit her all at once. You know how she gets emotional. I did know how she gets emotional. I'd seen her cry at graduation speeches, during insurance commercials, and once when a waiter brought her the wrong salad dressing. But this wasn't that kind of emotional. This was something else entirely. Go ahead, I said. I'm gonna sit down for a minute. Everything still hurts. That got his attention immediately. The confusion on his face shifted to concern. You need a nurse? Should I get someone? I'm fine. Just tired. Go talk to your mom. He kissed my forehead, then headed down the hallway after his mother and sister. The second he was out of earshot, my sister moved right up next to me. Okay. What the actual hell was that? I watched the hallway where Garrett had disappeared. I don't know yet. Liar. You know something. I can tell. I have a theory. A really messed up theory. I'm listening. Before I could answer, a nurse came up to us with a clipboard. Mrs. Holbrook, your son's doing great. We're going to keep him here for observation for another hour or so, but you should be able to feed him soon. Do you want to try breastfeeding or bottle? I answered her questions on autopilot, barely hearing my own responses. The whole time, I kept one eye on that hallway. The nurse eventually left, promising to come get me when the baby was ready. My sister leaned in close. Tell me. Not here, I whispered back. We moved away from the viewing window, away from the other families and their happy cooing, until we found an empty corner near the elevators. My sister backed me against the wall, blocking me in with her arms on either side of my shoulders like we were in some kind of dramatic TV confrontation. Talk. You remember how obsessed his mom's been with all those ancestry DNA tests? My sister's eyes narrowed. The ones she kept trying to get everyone to do? Yeah. And you remember how she basically disappeared when we announced the pregnancy? Hard to forget. What about it? I glanced around to make sure nobody was close enough to hear us. What if she knew? Knew what? That the baby wouldn't look like Garrett. My sister stared at me for a long moment, then her jaw literally dropped. Holy shit. You think she cheated on Theodore? I think Garrett might not be Theodore's biological son. The words hung in the air between us like toxic smoke. My sister's hands dropped from the wall. She took a step back, her face cycling through about 15 different expressions before landing on shocked disbelief. That's insane. Is it? Think about it. She was pushing those DNA tests hard until Garrett and I got engaged. Then she suddenly dropped it completely. Never mentioned it again. Maybe she just lost interest. Or maybe she was worried what they'd show. I crossed my arms, suddenly cold despite the overheated hospital hallway. And the second she saw that baby look exactly like Theodore, she knew. Knew what? That genetics don't lie. If the baby looks like Theodore, and Garrett is Theodore's son, then Garrett should share some of those features. But you've seen Garrett. He doesn't look anything like his dad. Never has. Everyone always said he must take after his mom's side of the family. My sister opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. This is crazy. You're saying your mother-in-law convinced everyone her son looks like her family to cover up an affair from like 30 years ago? I'm saying it's possible, but the baby looks like Theodore. So Garrett would have to be Theodore's grandson, not his son, which would make the baby look like his great-grandfather. And that's... She trailed off, doing math in her head. That's actually pretty common for genetic traits to skip a generation. Exactly. The baby got Theodore's genes through Garrett, even though Garrett doesn't look like Theodore at all. We stood there in silence for a moment, both of us processing what this could mean. Down the hall, I could hear a baby crying. A doctor was paged over the intercom. Normal hospital sounds, completely at odds with the insane conversation we were having. So what are you going to do? My sister finally asked. Nothing. Nothing? Your mother-in-law has been treating you like garbage for 2 years, barely showed up for the birth of her grandson, and she's apparently been hiding some massive secret that she's clearly freaking out about right now. And you're going to do nothing? What am I supposed to do? March down there and accuse her of having an affair 3 decades ago based on the fact that our newborn has his grandfather's ears? Yes, exactly that. I shook my head. I just gave birth 7 hours ago. I'm exhausted, I'm in pain, and I want to meet my son properly. This drama can wait. No, it can't, because whatever conversation is happening in that waiting room right now, Garrett's in the middle of it. And if your theory is right, his mom is either going to come clean or she's going to do some serious damage control. Either way, he deserves to know the truth. She had a point. But the thought of confronting my mother-in-law right now, with everything that was happening, with my body still recovering and my emotions all over the place, felt impossible. I'll talk to Garrett later, I said. After his mom leaves. After we've had time with the baby. After I can think straight. My sister looked like she wanted to argue, but she must have seen something in my face that stopped her. Instead, she just sighed and pulled me into a careful hug, mindful of my still tender stomach. Okay, but I'm not leaving until we figure this out. I'll camp out in your hospital room if I have to. Deal. We walked back toward the nursery window. The baby was awake now, his tiny fists waving in the air like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. Looking at him, at those unmistakable features that matched the man who'd raised my husband, I felt a weird mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. Because if I was right, if my mother-in-law had been hiding this for 30 years, then everything was about to change. Not just for her, but for Garrett, for Theodore, for our family. And I had no idea how to prepare for that. Garrett found us 10 minutes later. His face was pale and he walked like someone had just told him his dog died. My sister took one look at him and immediately made an excuse about needing coffee, disappearing before either of us could stop her. I waited. Garrett stared through the nursery window at our son, but I could tell he wasn't really seeing him. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping under his skin. What happened? I finally asked. My mom wants us to do a paternity test. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? She said. He stopped, swallowed hard. She said the baby looks too much like my dad and not enough like me, and she thinks we should make sure he's actually mine before we fill out the birth certificate. I stared at him. She thinks I cheated on you? No, I mean, I don't think so. She kept saying it was just to be safe, that sometimes these things happen, that it's better to know now than later. He rubbed his face with both hands. But the way she said it, Deb, it was like she was desperate for us to do it, like she needed us to do it. What did you tell her? I told her she was insane, that you'd never cheat on me, that I don't need a test to know that's my son in there. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were wet, but she wouldn't stop pushing. She kept saying we needed to be absolutely certain, that Theodore would want to know for sure. Where is she now? She left. Just walked out. My sister went with her. Right before she left, she told me not to sign anything until we got the test done. He turned back to the window. Our son is 3 hours old and my mother is already trying to make me doubt he's mine. I moved closer to him, carefully because everything still hurt, and took his hand. She's wrong. You know she's wrong. I know. But why would she say something like that? What would make her... He stopped mid-sentence. I watched realization dawn on his face slowly, like the sun coming up. Unless she's not worried about him being mine. Garrett. She's worried about me being my dad's. There it was. The truth sitting between us like a live grenade. That's crazy, I said, even though I'd been thinking the exact same thing 10 minutes ago. Is it? I've never looked like him. Not once. Everyone always said I took after Mom's side, but I don't really look like any of them either. I'm just this genetic anomaly that nobody questioned because why would they? Garrett, you can't just jump to. She wanted us all to do those DNA tests 2 years ago. Remember? And then she suddenly dropped it right after our engagement party. Right after she met your family and saw how close you all are. She stopped talking about it completely. He was connecting the same dots I had, reaching the same impossible conclusion. I squeezed his hand, unsure what else to do. Maybe we should talk to your dad, I suggested quietly. Garrett laughed, but it came out bitter and wrong. And say what? Hey Dad, we think Mom cheated on you 30 years ago and I might not actually be your son? Or we do nothing. We go back to our room, we meet our baby properly, and we figure this out later when everyone's calmer. Or we get the paternity test. I pulled my hand away from his. You want to test if you're the father? No. I want to test if my dad's my father. He looked at me with this expression I'd never seen on his face before. Lost and desperate and angry all at once. Because if he's not, I need to know. And if the baby looks exactly like him, then that means I am his son, right? Genetics don't lie. Genetics are complicated. Just because the baby has some of Theodore's features doesn't mean, please, the word came out cracked. I need to know, Deb. I can't walk around for the rest of my life wondering if the person who raised me is actually my father. I can't do that. I understood. Of course I understood. But the thought of opening this door, of potentially destroying his relationship with his parents, of confirming something that might be better left unknown, terrified me. Okay, I said. We'll figure it out. But not today. Today we're going to meet our son and we're going to be happy about it. The rest can wait. Garrett nodded, but I could tell he was barely holding himself together. A nurse appeared then, smiling and professional, telling us the baby was ready for his first feeding if I wanted to come back to my room. We followed her down the hallway in silence. The whole way, I kept replaying everything in my head. My mother-in-law's face at the window, her desperate insistence on a paternity test, the way she'd looked at that baby like he was proof of something she'd been hiding for 3 decades. And I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we'd just started, whatever truth we were about to uncover, was going to tear this family apart in ways we couldn't even begin to imagine. The baby latched on immediately, like he'd been doing it his whole life, instead of just the last few hours. Garrett sat in the chair beside my bed, watching us with this complicated expression that made my heart hurt. We're going to be okay, I told him. He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. And honestly, I wasn't convinced either. Update 1. We came home from the hospital yesterday. My mom still hasn't shown up. She texted once asking if we needed anything. And when I said she could come meet her grandson, she responded with, maybe next week, when things settle down. Things don't settle down with a newborn. She knows that. She had 2 kids herself. But that's not the main issue right now. Theodore came by this morning while Garrett was at the pharmacy picking up my pain medication. He showed up with this huge gift basket full of baby stuff, a giant teddy bear that won't fit anywhere in the nursery, and the biggest smile I've ever seen on his face. "Where's my grandson?" he asked, barely getting through the door before heading straight for the bassinet in the living room. I was still in my pajamas, hadn't showered in 2 days, and definitely wasn't prepared for visitors. But Theodore didn't care. He scooped up the baby like he'd been doing it forever, supporting his head and everything, and just stared at him with this expression of complete wonder. "He's perfect," Theodore said quietly. "Absolutely perfect." I stood there in my dirty pajamas, watching my father-in-law hold my son, and felt my throat get tight, because he meant it. You could hear it in his voice. See it in the way he touched the baby's tiny hand with one finger, in the way his eyes got wet when the baby gripped that finger reflexively. "He looks like you," I said before I could stop myself. Theodore glanced up at me, still smiling. "Everyone keeps saying that. My poker buddies saw the pictures Garrett sent. They all said the same thing. Hell of a thing. Genetics." My dad's features skipped me completely and landed on this little guy. He said it so casually, with no hint of doubt or suspicion, just pure joy that his grandson resembled him. And I realized right then that Theodore had no idea, no clue what his wife had been suggesting, what seeds of doubt she'd tried to plant. He was just a grandfather meeting his first grandchild, completely secure in his family and his place in it. "Where's Vanessa?" I asked, trying to keep my voice normal. Vanessa, my mother-in-law, the woman who tried to convince us to get a paternity test 3 days ago. "She's not feeling well. Migraine." Theodore gently rocked the baby, who'd started making those little newborn squeaking sounds. "She gets them sometimes. Stress-triggered, usually. She'll come by in a few days when she's better." Stress-triggered. Right. The baby started fussing, working up to a real cry. Theodore handed him back to me carefully. "I should let you rest. Just wanted to stop by and see him in person. Photos don't do him justice." "Theodore, wait." The words came out before I'd thought them through. He paused at the door, looking back at me expectantly. "Does Garrett look like anyone in your family? Like, specifically?" It was a weird question and we both knew it. Theodore's eyebrows went up slightly, but he considered it seriously. "Not really. No. We always figured he took after Vanessa's side. Her brother Philip has the same coloring, same build. Why do you ask?" "Just curious. Family resemblances are interesting." He smiled again, but there was something careful in it now. "They are. See you later, Deb. Congratulations again. You two are going to be great parents." After he left, I sat on the couch feeding the baby and hating myself for even bringing it up. What was I doing? Fishing for confirmation of my suspicions? Trying to gauge if Theodore knew something he wasn't saying? The baby fell asleep mid-feeding, milk-drunk and peaceful. I just held him, looking at his face. Theodore's face. My husband's grandfather's face. Garrett came home 20 minutes later with my medication and takeout from the Chinese place we both loved. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. "Your dad stopped by?" I said. Garrett froze in the middle of unpacking the food containers. And he was happy. Really happy. He doesn't suspect anything. Of course he doesn't. Garrett sat down hard on the couch beside me. Why would he? The baby looks exactly like him. If anything, that just confirms he's my dad. Or confirms you're his son. We sat there in silence for a while, the baby asleep between us, Chinese food getting cold on the coffee table. Finally, Garrett spoke. "I called my mom. I waited. Told her we weren't doing any paternity tests. That I knew you didn't cheat, and I wasn't going to disrespect you or our son by questioning it. What did she say? She said I was making a mistake, that I'd regret it. Then she said something weird. He picked at a loose thread on the couch cushion. She said, "Some things are better left unknown, but you're forcing my hand." Forcing her hand how? No idea. She hung up after that. The baby stirred, making little grunting sounds in his sleep. I adjusted him carefully, and Garrett reached over to touch his son's head with one finger, barely making contact. I ordered a DNA test, Garrett said quietly. One of those ancestry ones. It'll show me if my dad is actually my biological father. Garrett. I need to know, Deb. I can't live with this question in the back of my head forever, and if it turns out he's not my real dad? He stopped. Swallowed hard. Then at least I'll know the truth. What if knowing the truth makes everything worse? It's already worse. My mom tried to convince me my wife cheated. She's avoiding meeting her grandson. She's making cryptic threats about forcing hands. It's already a disaster. He had a point, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to make it exponentially more disastrous. My sister showed up that evening with groceries and more baby clothes that the baby would grow out of in 3 weeks. She took one look at both of us and immediately started cleaning our apartment while refusing to let either of us help. "You look like death," she informed Garrett cheerfully while scrubbing our kitchen counter. "Both of you. When's the last time either of you showered?" "Yesterday." I lied. "Try again." "Fine. 2 days ago." That's what I thought. Go shower. I'll watch the baby. I wanted to argue, but the thought of hot water and clean hair was too appealing. Garrett went first while I sat with my sister and the baby. She held him carefully, making faces at him even though his eyes were still mostly unfocused and he probably couldn't see her clearly. "So," she said casually, "your mother-in-law still being weird?" "Weirder." Garrett ordered a DNA test to find out if Theodore is his biological father. My sister's head snapped up so fast the baby startled in her arms. "He what?" "He needs to know." "Holy shit. When does he get the results?" 4 to 6 weeks, apparently. 4 to 6 weeks of waiting to find out if his entire life is based on a lie. That's gonna be fun. The baby started crying. That newborn wail that sounds like the end of the world. My sister handed him back to me immediately. "Your turn." I'm great at being an aunt, but the crying thing still freaks me out. I got the baby settled just as Garrett came out of the bathroom, hair wet, wearing clean clothes for the first time in days. He looked slightly more human. My sister shooed me toward the shower, and I didn't argue. Under the hot water, I finally let myself cry. Just stood there and cried for everything that was happening, everything that might happen, everything that had already changed. When I got out 15 minutes later, my sister had ordered pizza, and Garrett was passed out on the couch with the baby asleep on his chest. He fell asleep mid-sentence, my sister whispered. "Poor guy's exhausted." We ate pizza in near silence, both of us watching Garrett and the baby sleep. Finally, my sister spoke. "You know this is going to come out, right? Secrets this big always do." "I know. And when it does, it's going to be bad. Really bad." "I know that too." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I've got your back. Whatever happens. Both of you." That made me cry again. Quietly this time so I wouldn't wake Garrett or the baby. My sister just held my hand and let me cry. And for that moment at least, I felt like maybe we could get through this. Whatever this turned out to be. Update 2 weeks later. Vanessa finally came to meet the baby today. She showed up at 3 in the afternoon with no warning, just knocked on the door while I was in the middle of trying to figure out why the baby wouldn't stop screaming even though he'd been fed, changed, and burped. I opened the door still in pajamas again because apparently that's just my life now, with the baby wailing in my arms. And there she was. Full makeup, designer clothes, hair perfect, looking at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "I'm here to see my grandson," she announced, walking past me into the apartment without being invited. The baby was still screaming. Vanessa stood in the middle of our living room, looking around at the disaster zone that comes with a 2-week-old. Burp cloths everywhere, bottles in the sink, that weird baby smell that's part milk and part laundry detergent. "You should put him on a schedule," she said, not even looking at me. "Babies need routine. He's 2 weeks old, which is when you start establishing patterns. With Garrett, I had him on a feeding schedule by day 3. The baby kept crying. I bounced him, rocked him, tried the shushing thing the nurse had taught me. Nothing worked. Vanessa watched for about 30 seconds before stepping forward with her arms out. "Let me." Every instinct I had screamed not to hand her my screaming baby, but I was so exhausted and frustrated that I did it anyway. She took him, adjusted his position, and started this specific rocking motion that actually got him to quiet down within seconds. "It's all about the rhythm," she said, still not making eye contact with me. "Babies respond to consistency." She walked around our living room with my now quiet baby, and I stood there feeling like a complete failure as a mother. 2 weeks in and my mother-in-law could calm my baby better than I could. "Where's Garrett?" she asked. "Work. He'll be home around 6. "He went back to work already?" "You just had a baby." "We just had a baby. And yes, someone has to work. Maternity leave doesn't pay the bills." That got me a look. Not a nice one. "If you'd let us help financially." "We're fine." We weren't fine. We were drowning in medical bills and baby expenses, and I was having a minor breakdown every other day about how we were going to afford daycare when my maternity leave ended. But but there was no way I was asking Vanessa for money. Not after everything. She sat down on our couch with the baby, who was now completely content in her arms. I wanted to be grateful. Instead, I just felt angry and inadequate and like I was watching an intruder hold my child. He really does look like Theodore, Vanessa said quietly. She traced one finger along the baby's cheek. It's remarkable. Genetic traits skip generations sometimes, I'm aware. She finally looked at me. Has Garrett said anything to you? About what I suggested at the hospital? You mean about questioning whether I cheated on him? Yeah, he mentioned it. Her mouth tightened. I wasn't suggesting you cheated. I was suggesting you both be certain before making legal commitments on the birth certificate. Same thing. It's not. Paternity fraud happens more often than people think. I was trying to protect my son. From what? His wife who's never given him any reason to doubt her? The baby started fussing again. Little whimpers that would turn into full screaming if he didn't get fed soon. Vanessa handed him back to me, and I took him maybe more aggressively than necessary. You don't understand what it's like, Vanessa said. Watching your child make decisions that could ruin their life. Trying to protect them from consequences they can't see coming. What consequences? We're married. We have a baby. We're happy. What exactly are you trying to protect him from? She stood up, smoothing down her expensive skirt. Has he done any DNA testing? My blood went cold. Why would he? No reason. Just curious if he's interested in genealogy. It's become quite popular, you know. Everyone wants to know where they come from. He hasn't mentioned it. I was lying. The DNA test kit was sitting in our bathroom cabinet right now, waiting for Garrett to work up the nerve to actually use it. But there was no way I was telling her that. Vanessa picked up her purse, one of those designer ones that cost more than our monthly rent. Well, I should go. Theodore's waiting in the car. He wanted to come up, but I told him you probably needed rest. Theodore's in the car? He didn't think I should come alone. You know how he is. Always worried about me driving when I'm stressed. Does he know what you're stressed about? She paused at the door, her hand on the knob. When she turned back to look at me, her expression was different, harder, almost desperate. Tell Garrett not to do anything stupid, she said quietly. Some truths are better left buried, for everyone's sake. Then she left, and I was alone with my screaming baby again, my hands shaking, her words echoing in my head. Some truths are better left buried, which confirmed everything I'd been suspecting. Vanessa was hiding something big enough that even the thought of Garrett taking a DNA test terrified her. I fed the baby, changed him, put him down for what would probably be a 20-minute nap before he woke up crying again. Then I called my sister. She basically admitted it, I said the second she picked up. Admitted what? That there's something to hide. She told me some truths are better left buried. Holy shit. And she asked if Garrett had done any DNA testing. She's worried about it. She's actually worried. My sister was quiet for a moment. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. Garrett still hasn't used the test kit. He's been avoiding it. I think he's scared of what it might show. Can you blame him? Finding out your dad isn't your biological father would mess anyone up, but he needs to know. Living with this question hanging over him is worse than knowing the truth. Is it though? Is it really? I didn't have an answer for that. Garrett came home at 7, an hour late, looking like he'd had a rough day. He kissed me, looked down at the sleeping baby in the bassinet, and headed straight for the shower without saying much. I waited until after we'd eaten the leftover pizza from yesterday and the baby was down for his longest stretch of sleep. Then I brought it up. Your mom was here today. Garrett's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. What? She came to meet the baby. Theodore was in the car but didn't come up. Why didn't you call me? It happened fast. She just showed up. He put the fork down. What did she say? She asked if you'd done any DNA testing. Then she told me some truths are better left buried. Garrett was quiet for a long time, staring at his half-eaten pizza. Finally, he spoke. The kit's been sitting in the bathroom for 2 weeks. I know. I keep thinking I'll just do it. Get it over with. But every time I pick it up, I can't. Why not? Because once I know, I can't unknow it. And if it turns out my dad isn't my biological father, everything changes. My whole life becomes different. Every memory gets recontextualized. And I don't know if I can handle that. I reached across the table and took his hand. You don't have to do it, but I need to know. Those two things can both be true. He looked at me with those eyes that had made me fall in love with him 7 years ago, and I saw the scared little boy underneath the exhausted new father. What would you do? He asked. I don't know. This isn't my decision to make, but if it was you, if you thought your entire life might be built on a lie, would you want to know? I thought about it, really thought about it. Yeah, I would, because living with the question would eat me alive. Garrett nodded slowly. Then he stood up, walked to the bathroom, and came back with the DNA kit. He sat back down at the table, opened the box, and just stared at the contents. Okay, he said quietly. I'll do it. You don't have to do it right now? Yes, I do, because if I don't do it now, I never will. He swabbed his cheek, sealed the sample in the prepaid envelope, and put it in his backpack to mail tomorrow. The whole thing took maybe 3 minutes. 3 minutes that might change everything. After he went to bed, I stayed up with the baby during his midnight feeding, rocked him in the dark living room, watching headlights pass outside our window, thinking about Vanessa's face when she held him, the way she'd looked at him like he was evidence. Proof. A truth she tried to keep buried coming back to haunt her. and I wondered what we'd just set in motion. What consequences Garrett's simple cheek swab would have, not just for him, but for Theodore, for Vanessa, for our whole family. The baby finished eating and fell asleep in my arms, perfectly content, completely unaware that the family he'd been born into was about to implode. I kissed his forehead and prayed I was wrong. Prayed that when those results came back in 4 to 6 weeks, they'd show that Garrett was Theodore's son, that Vanessa was just paranoid, that everything would go back to normal. But deep down, I knew better. Some truths are better left buried, Vanessa had said. We were about to dig one up anyway. Update 3, 6 weeks later. The email came on a Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m. I know the exact time because the baby had just finished his feeding and I was scrolling through my phone in that half-asleep state you exist in when you're getting 2 hours of sleep a night. DNA test results available T. Click here to view. My stomach dropped. Garrett was still asleep beside me. The baby was in his bassinet making those little sleep noises, and I was holding the answer to everything in my hand. I didn't open it. Instead, I woke Garrett up by gently shaking his shoulder. The results are here, I whispered. He was awake immediately, going from dead asleep to fully alert in 2 seconds. What? The DNA results. They just emailed. He sat up, ran both hands through his hair, and took several deep breaths. Okay, let's look. Are you sure? No, but we're doing it anyway. I handed him my phone. He stared at the email for a long moment, his thumb hovering over the link. Then he clicked it. The website loaded slowly, asking for his password, making him verify his identity. All these little delays that felt like torture. Finally, the results page appeared. I watched his face as he read, watched the color drain from it, watched his eyes get wet, watched his hand start shaking so badly he almost dropped the phone. Garrett? My voice came out strangled. He didn't answer, just kept staring at the screen, his breathing getting faster and faster. The baby started crying, probably sensing the tension in the room, but neither of us moved. Garrett, talk to me. He finally looked up at me, and the expression on his face broke something inside my chest. Theodore's not my father. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Are you sure? Did you read it right? Sometimes these tests can be 0% match for any paternal relationship. 0% Deb. We don't share any DNA except the tiny amount that all humans share. His voice was getting louder, more panicked. He's not my father. He's not my biological father. Everything my mom told me my entire life was a lie. The baby was full on screaming now. I picked him up, bouncing him automatically while my brain tried to process what Garrett had just said. Theodore wasn't his father, which meant Vanessa had cheated, had gotten pregnant with someone else's child and passed him off as her husband's for 30 years. Oh my God, I whispered. There's more. Garrett scrolled down on the phone. The test shows DNA matches for potential relatives. There's a list of people I'm related to. None of them have the last name, Holbrook. What names do they have? Peterson. Most of them are Petersons. And there's one name at the top of the list. Marcus Peterson. Close family match. Likely father. Marcus Peterson. A man neither of us had ever heard of. Garrett's biological father. Garrett stood up suddenly, nearly dropping the phone. I need to call my mom. Garrett, wait. Maybe we should. She lied to me my entire life. She lied to my dad. She's been lying for 30 years. He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair over and over. I need to know why. I need to know who the hell Marcus Peterson is. I need answers right now. It's 7 in the morning. I don't care what time it is. He grabbed his phone off the nightstand and called his mother. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail again. 3rd time. She picked up. Garrett? What's wrong? Is the baby okay? Who's Marcus Peterson? Silence. Complete silence on the other end of the line. Mom? Who is Marcus Peterson? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Because according to the DNA test I just got back, he's my biological father. So I'll ask you again. Who is Marcus Peterson? More silence. Then I heard crying. Not Vanessa's usual manipulative tears, but real, ugly crying. You shouldn't have done that test, she finally said. Answer the question. Garrett, please. Answer the fucking question. I'd never heard him yell like that. The baby startled in my arms, his crying getting more intense. Garrett didn't seem to notice. He was someone I knew before I married your father, before I even met your father. So you cheated on Dad before you were married to him? That doesn't make any sense. I'm 30 years old. You and Dad have been married for 32 years. I didn't cheat. I was with Marcus first. We were engaged. And then, she trailed off, crying harder. And then what? And then I found out I was pregnant, and he left. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. Said he had career goals and a baby would ruin everything. So he left me. Garrett had stopped pacing. He stood frozen in the middle of our bedroom, phone pressed so hard against his ear that his knuckles were white. So you met Dad and convinced him I was his? No. I met Theodore and fell in love with him. He knew I was pregnant. He knew the baby wasn't his. He didn't care. He wanted to marry me anyway. Wanted to raise you as his own son. It was his choice, Garrett. He chose you. Does he know? Does Dad know I'm not biologically his? Yes. He's always known. That answer seemed to hit Garrett harder than anything else she'd said. He sat down on the edge of the bed, his free hand gripping the mattress. He knew the whole time? From the beginning, he said it didn't matter, that you'd be his son regardless of biology. Then why did you try to convince us to do a paternity test at the hospital? Why did you freak out when the baby looked like Dad? None of this makes any sense. Vanessa was crying so hard I could barely understand her words. Because the baby does look like Theodore, which means you are his son somehow. Which means I was wrong about what? Spit it out, Mom. About Marcus being your father. The room went completely silent except for the baby's crying and Vanessa's sobs over the phone. Garrett's voice came out flat and dead. I don't understand. I don't either. The math doesn't work. You should be Marcus's son. The timing was perfect. Theodore and I didn't sleep together until after you were born. We wanted to wait until we were married. So there's no way you could be Theodore's biological child, except the baby looks exactly like him. And the DNA test says I'm not related to him at all. I know, and I don't understand it. I've been going crazy trying to figure it out. Because if you're not Marcus's son and you're not Theodore's son, then who? She stopped mid-sentence. Who what? Oh my God. Mom. Who what? Marcus had a brother, Graham. They looked identical. Everyone said they could have been twins, even though Graham was 2 years older. Garrett's face went through about 15 expressions in 3 seconds. Are you telling me you slept with your fiancé's brother? No. I wouldn't. But she didn't sound certain. There was a party. Right before Marcus left. I got drunk. Really drunk. The kind of drunk where you don't remember parts of the night. Graham was there. Marcus was there. They both helped me get home. And you think you might have slept with Graham instead of Marcus? I don't know. I don't remember. I woke up the next morning with Marcus in my bed. So I assumed. She was crying too hard to finish the sentence. Garrett looked at me with this expression of complete disbelief. I stared back at him, equally shocked, still bouncing the crying baby automatically. So my biological father is a man you're not even sure you slept with. A man whose name you might not even have known. And Dad's known this whole time that I'm not his biological son. But he raised me anyway. He loves you, Garrett. He's always loved you. Biology doesn't matter to him. It matters to me. Garrett was shouting again. It matters that I've lived 30 years thinking I was one person, and I'm actually someone completely different. It matters that you didn't tell me. It matters that every time someone said I looked like Mom's family, you were just lying to cover up the fact that you didn't even know who my father was. I was protecting you. From what? The truth? Yes. Because what good would it have done for you to know? Theodore is your father in every way that matters. He changed your diapers, taught you to ride a bike, paid for your college, walked you through every important moment of your life. That's what makes someone a father, not DNA. Then why did you freak out at the hospital? Why did you want us to do a paternity test? Vanessa went quiet again. When she spoke, her voice was small and broken. Because when I saw the baby look exactly like Theodore, I realized there might be a piece of the puzzle I'd missed. Something I didn't know about. And if Theodore was somehow your biological father despite the timeline, then everything I believed about that night was wrong. And if everything about that night was wrong, you'd have to face what actually happened. Yes. Garrett ended the call without saying goodbye. Just pressed the end button and set his phone down carefully on the nightstand like it might explode. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to someone who just found out their entire life story was a lie? That their mother wasn't sure who their father was? That the man who raised them knew all along they weren't biologically related but loved them anyway? The baby had finally stopped crying, exhausted from screaming. He fell asleep in my arms, completely peaceful, while his father's world fell apart. I need to talk to my dad, Garrett said quietly. Do you want me to come with you? No, this is something I need to do alone. He got dressed, kissed both me and the baby, and left. I watched from our apartment window as he got in his car and drove away, and I wondered what that conversation would look like. Wondered if Theodore would break down or stay strong. If he'd be angry at Vanessa for finally telling the truth or relieved it was out in the open. If this would destroy their marriage or somehow make it stronger. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. How's it going? Haven't heard from you in a few days. I stared at that text for a long moment, trying to figure out how to respond. How do you summarize this? How do you explain that your husband just found out he's not who he thought he was? Can you come over? I typed back. It's a long story. She responded immediately. On my way. While I waited for her, I sat on the couch with my sleeping baby and finally let myself process everything that had just happened. Vanessa's confession. The mystery of Graham Peterson. Theodore knowing all along that Garrett wasn't his biological son. And the biggest question of all, if Garrett wasn't Theodore's biological son, but the baby looked exactly like Theodore, how did genetics work in this situation? I grabbed my laptop and started Googling, trying to figure out if it was possible for a grandson to strongly resemble his grandfather even if there was no direct genetic line, trying to make sense of something that seemed impossible. Turns out genetics is way more complicated than I thought. There are things called convergent features, where unrelated people can look similar due to chance. There are also situations where grandchildren can inherit traits from grandparents that skip their parents entirely. But for a baby to look identical to someone he wasn't related to, that seemed like more than coincidence. Unless, I sat up straighter, an idea forming. What if Theodore was related to Graham Peterson? What if the Peterson brothers weren't just the Peterson brothers, but had some family connection to Theodore that nobody knew about? It sounded insane, but everything about this situation was insane. My sister showed up 20 minutes later with coffee and bagels, took one look at my face, and immediately demanded the full story. I told her everything while feeding the baby, and watched her face cycle through shock, disbelief, and finally, this weird kind of fascination. So your mother-in-law maybe slept with her fiancé's brother while drunk, got pregnant, married a different man who knew the baby wasn't his, and now you're trying to figure out why your baby looks like your father-in-law even though there's no genetic relationship? That's the summary, yes. This is the wildest thing I've ever heard. This is like a soap opera. No, this is better than a soap opera, because it's real. Not helping. Sorry. Okay, let's think about this logically. She pulled out her phone and started typing. What do we know for sure? Garrett's not Theodore's biological son. Marcus and Graham Peterson are brothers. Graham might be Garrett's biological father. The baby looks like Theodore. Right. So the connection has to be between Theodore and the Petersons somehow. She kept typing, searching for something. What's Theodore's maiden name? What? His mom's last name. Before she married. I had no idea. Theodore's mom had died before I met Garrett. I'd never even thought to ask what her maiden name was. I don't know. Find out. Because I bet it's Peterson. I stared at her. You think Theodore and Graham are related? It would explain everything. If Theodore's mom and Graham's dad are siblings, or if there's some other family connection, then Theodore and Graham would be cousins, which would mean Garrett is Theodore's cousin's son. They'd share DNA through the family line. But the DNA test said Garrett had zero genetic relationship to Theodore. Those tests aren't perfect, and they might not flag more distant relationships. But it would explain why the baby has Theodore's features. Because Theodore and Graham share a genetic line, and the baby inherited those features through Garrett. It made sense in a twisted, complicated way. But there was only one way to know for sure. Theodore needs to take a DNA test too, I said. Yep, and compare it to Garrett's results. If they share any DNA at all, even a small amount, then they're related somehow. My sister left an hour later after making me promise to keep her updated. I spent the rest of the morning researching family genetics and DNA testing, trying to piece together what might have happened 30 years ago. Garrett came home at noon. His eyes were red, his face was puffy, and he looked like he'd aged 10 years in 6 hours. How's Theodore? I asked carefully. He's okay. Better than okay, actually. Garrett sat down heavily on the couch. We talked for 3 hours. He told me he's known since before I was born that I wasn't his biological son. He said he didn't care then and he doesn't care now. That I'm his son regardless of DNA. That's good. He also said he suspected Graham was my biological father instead of Marcus. Apparently, Graham had a reputation for sleeping with his brother's girlfriends. Theodore heard rumors about it years ago but never said anything because it didn't matter to him. Did you tell him about the DNA results? About the 0% match? Yeah, he was confused. Said it should show at least some genetic relationship if we're family, even distant family. Garrett rubbed his face with both hands. Then he said something that blew my mind. What? His mom's maiden name was Peterson. Graham and Marcus's dad was his uncle. Theodore and the Peterson brothers are first cousins. I felt my jaw literally drop open. My sister had called it. So you're Theodore's first cousin once removed. Not his son, but still related. Which explains why the baby looks like him. The baby got the Peterson family features through me. And Theodore has those same features because he's half Peterson himself. It all clicked into place. The baby's resemblance to Theodore wasn't some genetic mystery. It was just family traits being passed down through a more complicated route than anyone expected. How's Theodore handling all this? He's furious at my mom, not for the cheating or the uncertainty about my father, for lying about it all these years, for trying to manipulate us into getting a paternity test instead of just telling the truth from the beginning. Are they going to stay together? Garrett shrugged. I don't know. He said he needs time to think. That 30 years of marriage deserves consideration, but 30 years of lies deserves consequences too. We sat in silence for a while, watching the baby sleep in his bassinet. Everything had changed, and nothing had changed at the same time. Garrett was still Garrett. Theodore was still his dad in all the ways that mattered. The baby was still our son. But the family dynamics had shifted in ways we couldn't quite comprehend yet. Vanessa's lie had been exposed. Theodore's unconditional love had been proven. And somewhere out there, Graham Peterson existed. Probably with no idea he had a 30-year-old son. Are you going to try to find him? I asked. Graham? I don't know. Part of me wants to know who he is. What he's like. If I got anything from him besides DNA. But another part of me doesn't want to open that door. Because Theodore's my dad. Graham's just the guy who got my mom pregnant at a party. Both things can be true. I'm learning that a lot of contradictory things can be true at the same time. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Please tell Garrett I'm sorry. Please tell him I love him. I showed it to Garrett. He looked at it for a long moment, then handed the phone back without responding. I'm not ready to talk to her yet, he said. Maybe not for a while. That's okay. You don't owe her anything right now. The baby woke up crying, hungry again, and I picked him up to feed him. Garrett watched us, his expression soft and sad and loving all at once. He really does look like Dad, Garrett said quietly. Even knowing everything I know now, I look at him and see my father's face. Because Theodore is his grandfather, biologically, legally, and emotionally. Yeah, I guess he is. We spent the rest of the day in that weird space between crisis and calm, taking care of the baby, ordering takeout, existing in our little apartment bubble while the world outside shifted and changed. My mom finally called that evening. First time I'd heard from her since the baby was born 6 weeks ago. "I heard there was some drama with Garrett's family," she said, not even asking how I was or how the baby was doing. "How did you hear that?" "Your sister told me. She said something about DNA tests and paternity questions." Of course my sister told her. I made a mental note to kill her later. "It's handled," I said shortly. "Well, I'm glad. You don't need that kind of stress with a new baby. Speaking of which, when can I meet my grandson?" "I don't know, Mom. When were you planning to show up?" "I've been busy. You know how it is." "No, actually, I don't know how it is. Because when I went into labor, you didn't show up. When I had the baby, you didn't visit. It's been 6 weeks and this is the first time you've called. I didn't want to overwhelm you. I thought you needed space. My sister was here within hours. She's been here almost every day helping us. Theodore came the day we got home from the hospital. Space isn't what I needed." My mom went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "I'm sorry. I should have been there." "Yeah, you should have. Can I come meet him tomorrow?" I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell her that she'd missed her chance, that she didn't get to just show up 6 weeks late and act like nothing had happened. But the baby was her grandson, and he deserved to know his grandmother, even if his grandmother had been terrible to his mother. "Fine. Come at 2. And Mom, don't be late." She showed up at 2:30, which was actually early for her usual standards. She brought a ridiculous amount of gifts, most of them completely impractical for a newborn, and immediately started crying when she saw the baby. "He's beautiful," she said, tears running down her face. "He's absolutely beautiful." I handed her the baby, and she held him like she'd been doing it her whole life. All that time she'd avoided coming to meet him, and the second she had him in her arms, she melted. "I'm sorry I wasn't here," she said again, not looking up from the baby. "I was stupid and selfish, and I let my own issues get in the way of supporting you." "What issues?" She finally looked at me. "I was jealous. You and your sister have always been close, and when the baby was born and she was there for you and I wasn't, I convinced myself you didn't need me, that you had her and that was enough. You're my mother. Of course I needed you. I know that now. I should have known it then." We sat together on the couch, my mom holding the baby, and for the first time in months, things felt almost normal between us. Not perfect, not fixed, but better. Garrett came home from work and seemed surprised to see my mom there. She stood up immediately, handed me the baby, and hugged Garrett tightly. "Congratulations," she said. "He's perfect. You two made a perfect baby." Garrett hugged her back, and I saw some of the tension leave his shoulders. After everything that had happened with his own family, having my mom show up and be normal and supportive probably felt like a relief. She left an hour later, promising to come back soon and actually meaning it this time. After she was gone, Garrett and I sat on the couch with the baby between us, both of us exhausted, both of us emotionally drained. "Your mom seemed good," Garrett said. "Yeah, she apologized. Actually apologized. That's progress. How are you doing? With everything?" He thought about it for a moment. "I don't know. Better than this morning. Worse than last week. It's going to take time to process everything. To figure out who I am, now that I know the truth. You're still you. DNA doesn't change that." "I know, but it feels different. Like I've been living someone else's life story, and now I have to write my own." The baby made one of his little sleep sounds, and we both looked down at him. This tiny person who'd accidentally triggered an entire family revelation just by having the wrong face at the wrong time. "He's going to have questions someday," I said quietly. "About why he looks like his great-grandfather cousin. About the family genetics. About all of this. I know, and we'll answer them honestly. Because that's what my parents should have done for me. Your dad did. Theodore's always been honest with you." "Yeah, he has. And that's the relationship I want with our son. Complete honesty, even when it's hard." We sat there in the quiet apartment, our little family of 3, and I felt something settle in my chest. We'd been through something insane, something that most families would never experience. But we'd come out the other side together, stronger and more honest than before. The DNA results that were supposed to destroy everything had actually revealed the truth that set them free. Final update, 3 months later. Theodore and Vanessa separated 2 months ago. Not divorced, but separated. Theodore moved into an apartment across town, and Vanessa stayed in their house. They're in counseling, trying to figure out if 30 years of marriage can survive 30 years of lies. Garrett talks to Theodore at least 3 times a week. They meet for lunch, go to baseball games, and Theodore comes over every Sunday to spend time with the baby. Nothing between them has changed except that now everything is honest. Garrett hasn't spoken to Vanessa since the phone call where she admitted the truth. She texts him occasionally, always apologizing, always asking if they can talk. He deletes them without responding. I don't push him either way. This is his choice to make. We never found Graham Peterson. Turns out he died 8 years ago in a car accident. No wife, no kids that anyone knew about. No family except Marcus, who didn't even attend the funeral. Garrett took the news quietly. Said it was weird to mourn someone he never knew, but there was still this small part of him that wished he could have met Graham. Asked questions. Understood where half his DNA came from. Marcus Peterson, Garrett's uncle who was supposed to be his father, is still alive. living in Florida, married with 2 kids. Garrett found him on Facebook, but hasn't reached out, doesn't know if he ever will. My mom has become the most involved grandmother I've ever seen. She's here 3 times a week, bringing food and baby clothes and unsolicited advice that's actually sometimes helpful. She and Theodore bonded over their mutual love for the baby, and now they have coffee together sometimes, which is the weirdest friendship I never expected. My mother-in-law still hasn't met the baby. She asked once through Theodore if she could come by. Garrett told Theodore to tell her no. Yesterday, 3 months and 1 week after the DNA revelation, something happened that I didn't expect. Garrett came home from work with an envelope in his hand. He sat down on the couch, opened it, and pulled out a letter written on nice stationery in careful handwriting. "It's from Graham's sister," he said. Apparently Theodore reached out to her and told her about me. "What does it say?" He read it out loud. The letter talked about Graham, about what he was like as a brother and an uncle, about his sense of humor and his love for classic cars and his complete inability to commit to anything, including relationships. About how he'd always felt like something was missing in his life but never knew what. The sister, Margaret, included photos. Graham as a kid, Graham in high school, Graham in his 20s, around the time he would have been at that party with Vanessa. Garrett and Graham could have been twins. Same face, same build, same expression in their eyes. "She wants to meet me," Garrett said quietly. "Says I'm the only piece of Graham she has left. That he would have wanted to know me if he'd known I existed." "Are you going to meet her?" "I think so. Yeah, I think I need to." The baby started crying from his crib in our bedroom. I got up to get him, and when I came back, Garrett was still holding the letter, staring at the photos of a man who gave him half his DNA but never knew he existed. "He looks like me," Garrett said. "Or I look like him. It's strange seeing my face on someone else. You have his features, but you're not him. You're you. Raised by Theodore and Vanessa, shaped by your own experiences, your own choices. Biology is just the starting point." Garrett looked up at me, then at the baby in my arms. "Our son is going to grow up knowing the truth, about all of it, and hopefully, it won't define him the way it's trying to define me. It won't define you unless you let it." I know. I'm working on that. We're all working on it. Working on building a new family dynamic that includes the truth instead of hiding from it. Theodore is still Grandpa. Vanessa is still Grammy, even if Garrett won't talk to her. Graham is a ghost in photographs. A man Garrett will never know but can't quite forget.